You ever see a grown woman guard a box of sidewalk chalk like it's evidence in a federal case? Yeah, that happened. Community property means no child vandalizes our sidewalks. Daniel, this is your final warning. Claudia's voice just cut through the heat that afternoon. Sharp as broken glass, her hand locked around a neon box of Crayola like she'd just intercepted a shipment of drugs. My daughter Emma's art was drying across the concrete lilies her mother's favorite sketched in every color she could find. Not graffiti, not some act of rebellion. Memory. But try telling that to Claudia, who never saw a rule she didn't want to wield like a weapon. Really, Claudia, chalk is vandalism now. My voice stayed low, steady, mostly for the crowd of neighbors suddenly fascinated by the HOA's flower beds. Claudia grinned all teeth like she'd already won. She shook the box for show, that smug little move she always pulled like she was about to win another small-town standoff. She had no clue this wasn't just another Tuesday. Careful, Claudia, I said, slow and even. That authority you're clinging to, it depends on paperwork you don't even own anymore. I watched her eyes flicker just for a split second. That was enough. If you've ever felt that little jolt standing up to a bully, I said out loud, stick around. You're about to see how you take your power back. She snorted loud enough for the whole courtyard. Empty threats, Judge. We enforce the rules here, not you. Her words echoed off the brick where just days before Emma came home with bruises courtesy of Claudia's accidental shove when the chalk drawings wouldn't wash off fast enough. I let that silence build, everyone shifting in their sandals before I answered. You keep forgetting, Claudia. I'm not just another homeowner. I'm Daniel Mercer, county judge. I've signed warrants that kept real criminals up at night. You think I'm going to let you call my kids' art a crime? That was for her. Yeah, but also for myself. To remind myself my duty didn't end at the courthouse steps. The chalk was scattered everywhere. Emma's lilies streaked where Claudia had already stomped them with her shoe. It hurt to see them like that. Those weren't just random doodles. Each one was a love letter to a mom Emma barely remembered wiped out by cancer before she even started school. Art was the only thing that brought her back for us. Rain would wash the lilies away, sure. That was the point, they were fragile and real. Calling that vandalism, Claudia might as well have trampled a grave. Sun-baked pavement and honeysuckle in the air, neighbors watching from every window pretending not to. They'd seen what happened to folks who spoke up. Lawsuits, fines, sometimes just quiet misery until they moved out. But I wasn't going to blink first. Not this time. You crossed a line, Claudia, I said quieter now, just for her. And you're about to find out what happens when you abuse your power. She flung the chalk at my feet, her confidence suddenly brittle. We'll see who owns this community when the fines start showing up in your mailbox. She spat, heels clacking across the concrete as she stormed off. I just watched her go, thinking, you have no idea, do you? Sure enough, the next morning, red envelope on my doormat, official HOA violation. Emma's defacement of community property, $500. I picked up the notice, let the cheap ink bleed onto my thumb. This was classic Claudia. Not about property, not about rules, just about making you feel small. Emma was in the kitchen, spooning cereal, dark circles under her eyes. She saw the envelope, tried to hide the worry, but I caught it anyway. That little bruise on her arm was fading, but not fast enough for my liking. I set the fine aside, kissed her head, and swore to myself right then that this wouldn't break us. Out front, the chalk was still there. Claudia missed a few smudges. I walked past the clubhouse, heard voices from inside, all tense and nervous. Non-compliance means penalties. Claudia was barking at the HOA meeting. Someone tried to protest about a swing set, another about a kayak. Claudia shut them down with a snap. She didn't enforce rules, she enforced fear. That was her whole game. So I left. Let the cicadas drown out her lecture and walked to the lake. Mr. Turner was out fishing, gray and tired. Don't fight her, Daniel, he muttered, not even looking up. The Millers tried. She bled them dry in court. Good people gone now. That's how it went. Families, bullied homes, sold Claudia's power growing with every silent exit. I thought about Emma and the lesson she'd learn if I gave up. Keep your head down, never speak the truth. Not my style. Back home, I pinned the violation to my corkboard. That wasn't a threat. It was a starting line. The next battle, quiet, strategic. Claudia didn't know how to handle resistance. She thought silence was forever. She hadn't met me. That afternoon, I slipped into the HOA office. James Ortiz, the secretary, was there shuffling papers with sweaty palms. Long meeting, I asked, casual. He dropped his pen, fiddled with the folder, wouldn't meet my eye. Routine business, he mumbled, glancing at the clock, wishing he was anywhere but there. His body was screaming a story he couldn't voice. Hesitation, guilt, fear. You saw what happened to Emma's chalk, didn't you? I said soft but pointed. James flinched, arms crossed like armor. It shouldn't have gone that far, he whispered, eyes wide, almost desperate. I know I told him, but sooner or later you'll have to decide which side you're on. I left him there shaking, but I saw the crack open in Claudia's armor. Fear could make a man complicit, but guilt could set him free. A few days later, here's the twist, Claudia escalated. Not just one fine now. A packet 2 inches thick, every page, a new charge, unauthorized chalk activity obstruction, $2,000 total. She wanted me buried. Emma was at the dining table drawing quietly. She saw the packet, saw me force a smile, but I wouldn't let Claudia's threats poison her day. The neighborhood felt different that night. Shadows behind every blind, everybody watching, but nobody talking. They all knew. Claudia had been doing this for years, but nobody had stood up. So I went straight to the records office, asked for Lake Haven HOA's corporate filings. The clerk disappeared in the back, came out with a folder way too thin. That's when I saw it. Claudia's precious HOA was 2 years out of date. No renewal, no legal standing. She'd been bluffing with an expired badge all along. No drama, no showdown, just black and white proof. I got certified copies, my signature shaking a little as I realized what I was holding. Back home, Emma was waiting. Did you win? She asked, hope shining in her eyes. Not yet, I said, kneeling beside her sidewalk lilies, but we're not going to lose. The next morning, I called a meeting unofficial at the Lakeside Pavilion. Folks showed up nervous and jumpy, glancing over their shoulders. You've all gotten the fines, I said. But there's something you need to see. I laid out the proof. No filings, no authority for 2 years. Every fine, every threat, it's all smoke and mirrors. A hush fell. Mr. Turner whispered, "She's been faking it." Mrs. Patel shook her head, still scared. She won't stop. I told them bluffing only works if nobody calls it. Right then, Claudia swept in heels, clicking like gunfire, James trailing behind with his folder. She saw the papers, her face going hard. You think contracts vanish because of a technicality? She sneered. Covenants are forever. But James, his fingers trembling, finally spoke. Claudia told us not to renew. She said no one would notice. The room shifted. Fear started to crack. That night, church basement. Neighbors gathered, faces tired but expectant. I laid out the evidence. James stepped up, confessed, "We've had no standing for 2 years." Shocked gasps, then a rising tide of resolve. Mr. Wilkins, threatened with foreclosure last year, stood up. "If we don't act, she'll pick us off one by one." That's when I knew the silence had finally broken. The HOA board meeting felt more like a trial than anything I'd seen in court. Claudia tried to keep control, hammered out the old script about rules of order and disruptive behavior, but I walked right up, certified documents in hand. You've lost your legal standing, Claudia. Every penalty for the last 2 years is void. The crowd erupted, anger relief people waving violation slips they'd paid in fear. Claudia lost her cool, slammed her hand on the table. "This is just a clerical error," she yelled. James, trembling but steady, said, "No, it isn't. She told us not to renew." The room was on fire. Claudia's fortress gone. Her table was a cage, not a throne. Next stop, courthouse. The place was packed, neighbors, reporters, everyone buzzing. Claudia's attorney spun the lapse as a harmless oversight. I laid out the facts. 2 years of intimidation with no legal right. This isn't about a technicality. It's about trust. James took the stand, told the story of that board meeting, Claudia's command to ignore the law, her promise nobody would dig too deep. Then he described Emma, how Claudia had shoved her. The judge listened, weighed every word, then delivered the verdict. The HOA's actions have no legal standing. All fines, all liens issued in this period are void. Allegations of misconduct will be referred for criminal review. Cheers, tears, people hugging in the gallery. Claudia's face went white. Deputies hovered close, her board members looking anywhere but at the crowd. That night, the air at Lake Haven changed. People spilled out along the lake, kids darted over the grass. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in months laughing again. Emma crouched near the pavilion, drawing lilies and suns with a crowd of friends, no one stopping her, no one calling it a crime. James found me on the sidewalk. "It feels different now," he said, staring at the chalk. "It is," I told him, "because we called it out. That's all it ever took." As the sun dropped, folks started talking about real elections, fair bylaws, rebuilding from the ground up. Claudia's house was dark, her name just a cautionary tale. Emma called out, "Daddy, come draw with us." I knelt beside her, blue chalk in hand, and let myself breathe for the first time in months. "Mom would have loved this," she whispered, leaning into me. I nodded, tears stinging. "She would, sweetheart." Every streak of color was proof fear lost, truth won. Not just because the law was on our side, but because we finally stood up together. So let me ask you, if you've ever tangled with an HOA tyrant or felt powerless against the rules, would you fight back? Drop your story in the comments. Hit subscribe if you're tired of letting silence decide who gets justice. Because sometimes the only thing scarier than speaking up is what happens if you don't.